Just in case you don't already know, I'm launching a brand new group coaching program entitled Millionaire Hustlers. You can actually check it out at millionairehustlers.com. I think it's an awesome domain name. It's 90 days to kicking your butt into high gear, becoming ridiculously productive, and creating more cash in your business. And I've gone through the entire thing. We've had some amazing testimonials from the last few classes, and this is the very first time that I'm telling everyone on my list. We filled it up before without actually even emailing anyone about it, which is amazing. So I want to tell you, if you think it might be a good fit and you really feel like you want to get kicked in the butt, I'm your girl. I love UFC. I really would like to kick you in the butt. So that way you can create more revenues in these next 90 days. So check out millionairehustlers.com. We're going to be starting the very first class on September 15th, and we're going to be trying to keep the numbers pretty low. So make sure you jump in now so that way you get a spot. Again, it's millionairehustlers.com. Have an amazing day. Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Tardy, and I'm super excited to have my friend Matt Wilson on the show. He runs an amazing site called Under 30 CEO. He also has a travel company under a different name, under30experience.com, and I've seen tons of stuff on Facebook, and it makes me want to go on their crazy adventures that they've been going on. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Matt.
Not a problem, Jamie.
So tell me about the site, because I remember seeing the site and going like, Under 30 CEO, that sounds super cool. And when I heard about it, I was under 30. So it was cooler then. And now I just feel old. So tell me about how you actually came up with that site.
Yeah, no problem. See, this is the thing. People are attracted to that name, no matter how many what's going to happen when you turn 30 jokes I get. People are attracted, for whatever reason. But under30ceo.com is a site that we started, I think 6 years ago now, that basically helps young people start businesses. That was the core of what it did. And now we've branched into other stuff, talking about health and fitness, and of course travel, and living just more well-rounded lives, because as we started to work on our internet startup for 14 hours a day, crammed in our little cramped apartment in New York, and not being very healthy about the whole thing, we decided, okay, well, you need to have a really solid foundation to build success on top of.
Which I think is really, really interesting, because as people start to build their businesses, they sort of let everything else slide, because it's difficult. You got to, grind for a little bit in order to do some of that stuff. Do you think people, even at the beginning, can start really paying attention to their health and sort of being more balanced? Or do you think they have to go hardcore when they start?
No, I mean, honestly, if you look at all the overnight celebrities and the Disney stars and the people who all of a sudden rise to success and are not eventual millionaires, they are all of a sudden, skyrocket. Well, they probably, to be honest, they probably don't have their shit together. Like well-rounded people all together. My stress levels have been through the roof. I have taken off long periods from the gym, and that's something that I never would have sacrificed before I started my business. You eat whatever, you get 15 minutes for lunch, and you run out and you get the closest thing. And I've still always tried to be health conscious through the entire startup phase, but it catches up to you. And I see so many of my very successful friends just crumbling. And then when something bad happens, the economy crashes, or you have a family issue or whatever it is, then, that's when it really gets serious if you don't have a solid foundation.
So what do we do? Like, especially for somebody, because in my audience, there's people who have day jobs that are trying to start something on the side, or they're in the first, 1 to 3 or 5 years in business. So they're sort of still in the uptake of going like, okay, we can still move forward, but we usually sacrifice. Do you, knowing what you know now, do you think people should be paying more attention to being well-rounded at the beginning, or no?
I mean, I think of building a business in much more of I hate the word holistic, right? Because it sounds like voodoo or something, but in much more a holistic way, where I think about designing my life. I don't think about so much just the dollars behind it, or just the, hey, I want to get famous and have an awesome podcast or an awesome blog or whatever your listeners are going after. I now look at it all together as, how am I going to build the life that I want to create? And does this mean that I'm going to take off years of my life? Or does this mean that I'm going to age quickly, or let my health go, or, not have any time for relationships and friends when I'm young? Which, you always have to make sacrifices, but you should at least be conscious of what you're doing. And yeah, I absolutely think that you should be designing your life. And a lot of people say, oh, lifestyle business, that's just for people who want to, surf and live in Costa Rica like I do in the winter. And it's absolutely not true. You should be designing your business so that you can live the life that you want.
No matter what that is. Because some people have a family and you don't necessarily want to work forever doing that stuff too. It depends on what you want. But I think the funny thing is, like you're saying, is if you don't ask yourself that question, then you don't know what you want. And therefore you just build whatever the heck sounds like the best thing. And it might not even be what you want in the long run, which sucks, right?
Absolutely. And, men, I see this a lot more in men, where they're like, all right, whatever, I'm just going to be single for 5 years and totally get my business together. And then I'll be rich, and then I'll be able to, attract a hot woman, or they wouldn't use the word woman. I'd be able to attract some hot chicks. Like, well, you're probably going to be fat and look creepy in 35. And,
look creepy, I like that.
And you're going to be trying to go hit on college girls, and they're going to want nothing to do with you. So, it really, and then women have a entirely different problem, because everyone's biological clock is ticking. And if you want to have healthy children, I mean, you have to start thinking about that. And it's, I don't know, I think we're really going to see some interesting, some unfortunate issues start to come up as our generation starts to get to that age where the clock really does tick.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of see, especially being a woman and knowing what people are going through. It's insane. But one of the interesting things is, one of the reasons why I started doing what I'm doing, right? And it's called Eventual Millionaire, because it doesn't matter how long it takes, right? It's supposed to be about life first, then money. So you're preaching to the choir for my people right now. They're like, yes, okay, life first, then money, right? That's the point. It's not all about the millions. Don't get me wrong. Money is very good. But you want to have that lifestyle that you want. And I think people are super excited about blogs and podcasts and all that fun stuff, and don't realize how long of a process this can be. So I want to hear about your process. You're older than I am in blogging years, right? I'm only 4 and you're you're 6.
I'm under 30. Don't blow up my spot, Jaime. I'm still under.
I know, you're younger than me. Darn it. But in blogging years, you're older. So I have to do something here, right? I'm just feeling old having you on my show. So how did you actually start? And this was a long time ago. And then take us through, the 6 years and how Under 30 CEO has been growing.
Sure. So we basically started in 2008 when I graduated from school, and I didn't want to I didn't want to go and get a job, and I wanted to start a business. And what I realized was that I wasn't surrounded. I was living at home with my mom in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Nice.
Not exactly the hotbed of entrepreneurship by any means. And you have to do what you have to do. But I was at home, and I didn't have any tools and resources. And it seems, God, seems like the beginning of the internet to me. And I'm sure there are people laughing and saying, yeah, they remember, before the days before social media. But really, like, Twitter was just taking off. And so we were able to capitalize on building community around a site and helping people. And so that's what we did. We just brought a bunch of people together that could eventually, that were going to be that were trying to be successful when they were very young. And we knew in your eventual millionaire type fashion, that these people are going to be successful. And if we surround ourselves with a really good network of people while we're young, well, as those people progress, we're going to have a really awesome network, which we do now. But yeah, we've worked on this for 6 years. We published lots and lots of content. We've published over 4,000 articles for entrepreneurs, and yeah, now we're even building curriculum for this lifestyle that I'm talking about, that goes through, hey, you should be paying attention to your nutrition, to your fitness, to controlling your stress levels and your emotions, and learning to meditate before you even decide. It's like all the stuff that they should have taught us in school, right? And then, our level 2 is going to be about how to manage your personal finances, because just like I mentioned, the celebrities, if you don't know how to balance your checkbook now, and there's so many people who I know have businesses and can't balance their own checkbook, what are you going to do when you actually have money? So that's the type of curriculum that we're building out now.
Which is awesome. And I noticed that you say we, because it's more than just you now. Don't you have a bunch of people working on it?
Yes, so I've had a co-founder. His name is Jared O'Toole, and we have been friends since 4th grade. And now we are a team of 6. I think there's a core team of 6, but for Under 30 Experiences, our travel company, we actually have about 20 alumni who are all community managers in our different cities. Like I was referring to Courtney in Austin, who was hanging out, getting the community together there.
Yeah, tell me about Under 30 Experiences and how that sort of came about. Because the cool thing is that once you dive into a market, you can find out, like you were saying, what they really want. Like, hey, wait, we do need to know about health and fitness and stuff like that. And you already had a community built. You could teach them about whatever the heck they want. So I'm sure this sort of came from that. So tell me about how that sort of all worked out, the travel company.
Sure. So as I was kind of talking about looking at a more holistic view of my life, I was stuck behind of a computer for like 12, 14 hours a day. And that just was not for me. And, and I love Under 30 CEO and the community and everything, but I wanted to go out and experience the world. And I took a random trip to Iceland. And I came back and I was like, wow, I really need to do more of that. And so we actually started Under 30 Experiences as retreats for entrepreneurs. And what we realized while doing that is that A, everybody wanted to come, and B, nobody really wanted to talk that much about business. They just wanted to hang out and relax. And sure, people do naturally talk about business, but it's not like going to a networking event. People kind of unplug and they get to take a step back. And sure, of course, people, business partners have formed out of Under 30 Experiences and stuff like that. But now it's just for young professionals who want to go have a good time, but still connect with a like-minded group of people.
How did you know that there was a market there? Because you went on a trip and you're like, hey, that's cool. I want to do something with that. And I'm assuming you already had a list. So you're like, how did you actually come up and go, hey, let's test it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about the internet today is you can just come up with a landing page and say, is this something that I think people would be interested in? And, you could do a Facebook ad and market it to market it to all your Facebook friends. And so like we just started doing fitness retreats, but we thought, you know what? This is going to be really easy to test out. And sure enough, I partnered with a guy named Adam Griffin, who has a community called Body Fit. And I said, hey, Adam, let's see if we can put fitness retreats together. Do you think your audience would be interested? And sure enough, he put up a blog post and he had 6 people sign up for our first trip.
Really? All right. Tell me about the logistics behind all that. I've always been wanting to do like in-person events or retreats or something like that. So tell me about how you got into it, especially when you didn't know really anything about that space before.
So I'll tell you that it definitely, I explain it very simplistically, and it is. But if you're going to go to places like Central America, a lot of times people are people are definitely going to have a lot of questions for you and want to see you as a trusted resource. So there's a balance. And the reason that I partnered with someone who was very credible in the fitness industry is I knew that there was a market just intuitively for it. And just from talking to people about their health and fitness needs, because that is one of the things that I really love. But I'm not a trainer. But I said, well, wait a second, let me partner with someone who's who is incredibly credible in the space, and who's someone who he writes for Men's Health, and he has his own startup and his own community and his fitness app that I actually use. And so building that credibility is the hardest part, but posting to your Facebook like, hey, who wants to go on a retreat with me? I want to go to, Miami or wherever. It's really not so hard. But the one thing, be forewarned, is everybody says they're going to want to go to Miami, right? Who doesn't want to go to Miami? However, actually having them come up with the money and actually sign on the dotted line, that's a whole different story.
Definitely. And that's sort of what I want to know about then too, because don't get me wrong, I've seen the stuff on Facebook, especially with Under 30 CEO and experience, and I'm like, oh, that looks really awesome, let me see if I have the dates available, and then life happens and I'm like, oh shoot, oh, and then they went, oh, I missed it. Right? Or it's one of those things where travel sounds super fun and interesting, gets you excited for 5 minutes, and then you're on to other things. And so when you have people sign up, are you like, okay, this is the date, this is like, give me the logistics on how we set it all up and how you're going to make money off of them. Because I know a lot of people that do events or retreats that are like, yeah, I don't really make anything off of it, but it was a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah, so events are not a high margin business, so we have to do a lot of them. I mean, in January, we are running, I think, 5 or 6 trips.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, now we have three ski trips this winter. I mentioned that we have our fitness retreat. We have a Costa Rica trip in January, a Nicaragua trip in January, a Belize trip in January. And so you got to do you do have to do a lot of volume. So yes, it's not as easy as it sounds. Now, some coaches like to charge a premium for them being there, but like our fitness trip, we just want the thing to run. We're not worried about making money with it right now. It's a $995 trip for 5 days. I mean, if you do the math.
Wait, what? That's it?
Your flight is not included.
Yeah, but $1,000 for a 5-day trip?
Yeah, it's a very affordable. Yeah, it's a very affordable trip. And Adam could have said, "Hey, look, my training is really valuable. Yeah. I want to charge $3,500 for this trip." But that's not what we're trying to do here, And I see a lot of coaches that do try to say like, hey, I'm a yoga or yoga teachers, and say, hey, I'm this famous guru. Let me come and charge people a lot of money. But people get there and they have super high expectations, right? And I've made that mistake before. I've charged too much for a trip.
Or you have. How do you know whether or not you have?
You can feel it. People, if they're expecting a 4-star resort, better get a 4-star resort. Because
they walk in and they're like, what the heck, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, we found from trial and error, we found a really nice price point that is very affordable, yet still very nice. We're not sleeping in hostels. We're not going camping. Nothing of that. It's still a place where you would want to spend your vacation. Actually, the places are beautiful, but we're not staying at a westernized resort where people are going to be like waiting on you hand and foot. There's an element of getting out of your comfort zone and experience.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about how long you've had the travel company too, because I find it really interesting to like hear the story. I actually had another person who started a travel company going to like the Olympics, and like hearing the stories behind the I don't know, I just think it's really interesting. So how long have you had under 30 experience?
So I set out for that trip to Iceland 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
And so I said, oh, there was actually the Startup Iceland conference actually happened to be in Iceland at the end of May. And I said, let me try to get a trip together in 2 months, which was absolutely crazy.
Are you that kind of guy though? You're like the kind of guy that's
Yeah.
like super tight deadlines and it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that I was that type of guy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But now, honestly, I'm planning more than a year in advance for our trips, and that's scary too because we are sending money all over the world for the deposits on these places, and so who knows if we go next year back to our place in Timbuktu, or that's not one of our trips, but.
Sounds good.
That's where that is. But yeah, anyway, it's a lot. It's scary. It is a scary business. But yeah, 2.5 years ago, we started it out. Then I took off to trip to Costa Rica. Somebody had told Jared, hey, you should check out Nicaragua. There's some microfinance projects going on, and I have some friends working over there. What do you think? And I looked at a map. I had no idea where Nicaragua was. And I said, oh, yeah, I think I can do that. I didn't speak Spanish at the time. And so there were a lot of moving parts to the business. So traveled traveled to 7 countries that year.
Really?
And then, yeah, I've been pretty much traveling full time for the last 2.5 years.
Because you're in Paris right now. Okay. So what I
Yes.
find really interesting is like seeing you create a business within your other business. And especially because your first business was really about like learning how to do startups and entrepreneurship better. So what did you learn from 4,000 articles from learning all about entrepreneurship the first time that you could really implement the second time? Any advice, especially for somebody like starting up something brand new?
Sure. So here's something that I think that your audience, it might resonate with your audience, and it's something that took me a long time to learn. It was whenever I start a business now or start a new revenue stream or write something, I say that I'm doing it for life, that I'm starting this business for life, because there's too many people that are chasing the quick dollar to pay their rent like I had to for so many years. But it's, you realize that it's not sustainable. And what I want to do is set up a business system that every time I go to a place, I go to all these places before I bring anybody there. So, for example, I went on a trip to Bali a year and a half ago, and we're just running our first 2 trips next month to Indonesia. And so that investment was made, it's a $1,500 flight, and then the stay over there, etc. I looked at that as, okay, I'm going to this place, but I could bring people here for the next 10 years or for the rest of my life. Or if I write a blog post, I want it to be evergreen content that if my grandkids read it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, Grandpa Matt, he was pretty smart back in the day. This was some good stuff. I don't want to just write it to get a few tweets and likes on Facebook and then it go by the wayside. I want to write stuff, and you have to think about your legacy even when you're doing this. In addition to your revenue stream. So there's too many people that are trying, and I did it for years, trying to come up with a new revenue model or a new source of income just so that they can keep their business alive. And yeah, that hurt us for a long, long time.
I love hearing that. And now I want to call you Grandpa Matt from now on. But
Sure.
so commitment and having that, I mean, and a lot of newer entrepreneurs don't do that. It's like, I'm going to try a whole bunch of things and see what hits instead of really moving forward and going, I'm going to make this work no matter what. I see that as a huge issue for people. Where did that shift come though from you? Because you said before it wasn't like that. And then now, where did you feel like you had that realization?
So I think both statements, both statements are true. You can still, right? So we're all about testing things to see if it works. Just like I said, hey, I got together with my buddy Adam and said, hey, should we do fitness trips? Let's see if it works.
Yep.
But I was upfront with him in the beginning, and I said, I want to run this for an X number of year time period. If, we're going to be partners in this, let's agree on that. So
so testing within the commitment, I think, is huge. And if it doesn't work, you can let it go. But I see too many people just sort of, like you said, shotgunning and going like, well, let me do 7 things at once and go like this. You know what I mean?
Of course. And yes, this all does take a lot of luck, but that shift really came. Honestly, I think that shift came once money wasn't an issue every month.
Isn't that funny?
Because then you have a chance to breathe. Then you have a chance to step back, and Under 30 CEO is what funded the project with Under 30 experiences and what has funded my travels and all of that. And so then you say, all right, well, what can we invest in, and what type of businesses can we start now? But the pressure's off once you hustle your way to sustainability. Then you can look a lot more. Then it's a lot easier to look long term.
Definitely. Actually, I want to know a little bit more about Under 30 CEO and your business model, because and like, can you tell me like how big it is or anything like that too? Because I've seen you guys grow, but I don't really know where you're at this stage. So tell me a little bit about your business model and how big it is.
Sure. So with Under 30 CEO, God, I could tell you all of the business models that we've tried with the shotgun approach and all of that, right?
Oh, I kind of want to know those too, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's been everything, right? Under 30 CEO, most people don't know, and we're probably used to be ashamed to say that it was a Ning social network when it first started.
Really?
Like,
wow.
Yeah, and so and we did consulting, right? And that paid the bills for a long time. And the business AppSumo, if you've heard of it, the daily deals for apps and tools for entrepreneurs. We literally were doing the same thing as AppSumo when they launched.
Really?
But at the time, selling GoDaddy domain names to people on the commission of a $12.99 domain was not going to pay our rent in New York City, and so we went away from that. Noah Kagan is making millions of dollars on that.
I know. Darn that, Noah. My gosh.
Yeah, so but that's okay because Noah was a lot more experienced than we were, and he made money at Facebook, and he made money at Mint. Whatever the other startup he at mint.com, I think the other one was. So, but then we pivoted again, and I don't even like I think I wore out the word pivoted back in the day when we were struggling. But we were making a ton of money off of just advertisements and stuff like that. So, just advertising on the site. We had 500,000 people that were visiting our site every month. And so anyway, and now, as I was telling you before, we're developing course curriculum for people, kind of like the personal MBA, where if you want to go and, you could spend $150,000 on an education that doesn't really teach you the real world stuff, or you could come and, spend whatever, a couple $100 at a time on some really good courses and learn productivity and how to manage your finances and the right foods to make you perform at your peak. And, the stuff that we're looking to now is like the brain science behind meditation and how that allows you to tap into the parts of your brain that allow you to be more creative. And so, so there's all sorts of, we've done it. I feel like we've done it all, Jamie, but again, awesome. I think it's still in our infancy. We want to run this thing for a long time, even when we're over 30 years old.
It's so funny that I get people going, well, when you're a millionaire, what's your site going to be? And I go, well, I also own eventualbillionaire.com, and they all laugh, but I actually do. So like, you don't own Under 40 CEO or anything like that, do you?
No.
Man, you should have planned for that, right?
Although we're a travel company, although our demographic, right, the people who we built a relationship with with our list and our readers and our travelers, they're all going to get older, and guess what? They're still going to care about business, and they're still going to want to travel. So all is not lost.
Yeah, they'll be like, so I'm totally over 30, because I read your site too. I'm totally over 30. No one will know that I'm still reading their site now.
Exactly.
I'm young at heart. That's what matters more than anything else. I really appreciate this, Matt. I could talk more. I love what you've done watching Under 30 CEO. I know I've guest posted and stuff like that on your site. I think it's a killer site. I'm going to finish up with the last question I always ask. And what's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
All right. Well, I guess I was referring to it earlier, but it's the fact that everyone needs to sit down and think about building themselves a solid foundation and looking at all the different parts of your life and saying, hey, am I going to be healthy in 10 years? Is this business something that I'm going to want to do in 10 years? Is this something, say my circumstances change and I have a family in 10 years or whatever, or I don't have a family in 10 years? Well, then, is this still where I'm going to want to be? Are you tying yourself down geographically because you decide that you're going to buy a home in a certain area? I have all these friends buying houses because we're getting to that age, and I'm thinking, wow, well, what if the economy is no longer good in that location? Like, you don't have any skills online, and you're not going to be able to work virtually. What are you going to do? I mean, all my extended family lives in Flint, Michigan. And the auto industry is not there anymore, and there are no more jobs. So these are all things to think about, but building that solid foundation, giving yourself the tools and the resources, and teaching yourself the skills that it's going to take to be successful in the long run.
I love that. And it's so funny because when we talk foundation, it always sounds very unsexy, like, oh, let's talk about foundation. But it's hugely important, and people like to gloss over for that quick buck, like you were saying before, or the quick lose 10 pounds and whatever. But in general, if you're really asking yourself the right questions, then you can know you're on the right path. Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. Where can we find out more about you and your travel company and all that other fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, you can go and read all of our content on under30ceo.com. But if anybody wants to come and hang out with us in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Iceland, Alaska, come skiing with us, whatever, we are more than happy to have you. And you don't have to be under 30. That's the biggest part. So that's under30experiences.com.
And Matt's super cool to hang out with. He's a friend of mine, and you should be paying him just to hang out with him because he's so cool. No, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Matt. I'll definitely link everything up in the show notes so everyone can check that out, and check out under30ceo.com too, because I know all you guys listening right now will love that content too. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Matt.
Awesome, Jamie. Really appreciate it.